10. Bullshark vs. crocodile. Swimmers in the north of far western Australia got a first-hand opportunity to witness a bullshark and crocodile crossing paths late last year in the Ord River. Speaking with NCA Newswire, witness Chelsea Wood said that people were splashing and fishing in the water, seemingly oblivious to the encounter happening just meters away. She estimated that the saltwater croc was about 16 feet. Drone footage that Wood and her partner Bryce Connell uploaded to YouTube channel Caravan Adventure Oz shows that the massive reptile dwarfed the bullshark. In the video, the crocodile sits motionless as the shark approaches, coming within feet of its adversary. Suddenly, the shark wisely decides against escalating things into a fight and swims away. Wood told the Daily Mail she was glad the footage might raise some awareness about what's lurking in the local waters, where residents were nonchalantly entering the river, seemingly without second thought. When you're down under, sometimes that is not the best plan. 9. Tiger vs. bear. Late last year, a Bengal tiger went head-to-head with a sloth bear in the Tadoba and Bary Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra, India. Tour leader and photographer Arpit Parekh, who works at the national park, captured shocking footage of the encounter, which shows the tiger fearlessly attacking the 1.8-meter tall, 136-kilo bear, pinning him to the ground and sinking its teeth into him. The distressed, bleeding bear can be heard crying out, but he fought back hard enough to tire out the 300-kilo tiger, who continued to stalk the bear as he walked away. It wasn't long before the injured bear turned around and charged at the tiger, swiping his paw and baring his teeth, and at some point biting the big cat's leg. Finally, the tiger fled into the nearby water. The bear understandably decided to call it quits shortly thereafter and went along his way. The altercation lasted roughly a half hour, according to Parekh, who told Mail Online that the group who witnessed the fight thought that the bear was going to die until the tiger became exhausted and let go. Native to India, sloth bears are among nature's most fearsome predators. In the last 20 years, they've killed hundreds of people and have injured thousands, causing more human deaths per capita than any other bear species. Experts believe that the sloth bear's highly aggressive demeanor stems from living in close proximity to large human populations. 8. Jaguar vs. anaconda. Late last year, photos of a jaguar battling a yellow anaconda in the western Brazilian state of Mato Grosso went viral. Captured by wildlife photographer Chris Brunskill in South America's Pantanal region. The shocking images show the giant snake caught between the jaguar's powerful jaws at the edge of the Cuiabá River. The photos raised several intriguing questions, including how common it is for the two species to fight and which is more likely to win. Writing for Interesting Things, Edmund Torr pointed out that most big cats, including jaguars, are opportunistic hunters who pursue their next meal by searching in places where they're likely to find creatures that are smaller than them. Jaguars are ambush predators who silently stalk their target before pouncing. These water-loving cats are known to eat numerous aquatic animals, including fish, frogs, sea turtles, and even caimans. They kill reptiles mainly by biting them in the head, and this is likely the approach taken by the jaguar featured in Brunskill's photos, according to Torr. During the 2-minute-long fight, the anaconda reportedly bared its fangs to the jaguar several times, even striking its nose at one point. But it wasn't enough for this non-venomous reptile to come out on the winning end of things, or even to slow the jaguar down. In fact, jaguars are not known to ever fall prey to yellow anacondas, despite the latter being one of the world's biggest snakes, typically reaching about 4.6 meters long and weighing as much as 30 kilos, although they can grow much larger. Another video that surfaced earlier this year shows a black jaguar and a green anaconda entangled in a fierce battle, with each trying to pull the other onto its home turf. The fight appeared to end with the jaguar dragging the massive snake out of the water and onto dry land. I guess it's a tough life out there when you're an anaconda. 7. Snake vs. crocodile. As one of nature's most aggressive predators, crocodiles have very few animals to fear. But one of these ferocious reptiles met its match in northern Queensland, Australia in 2014 when it crossed paths with a 3-meter-long python. Local author Tiffany Corliss was among the spectators who watched as the python wrapped itself around the crocodile, suffocating it to death over a long, drawn-out struggle. Speaking with the BBC, Corliss said that the fight began in the water, with the crocodile struggling to keep its head from being submerged. She also described the huge snake rolling the crocodile around to get a better grip, holding the animal's legs tightly to its body. The fight lasted a staggering 5 hours, witness Alice Rosenthal told the news outlet. Toward the end of the ordeal, both creatures appeared exhausted, but the snake ultimately came out on the winning end. After killing its victim, the snake uncoiled itself and began to devour the crocodile, slowly swallowing it whole, head first. It took the snake 15 minutes to eat its meal, according to callers. Did you ever think that a snake could defeat a crocodile? Do you think this snake just got lucky? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 6. Orca versus Great White Shark. It's easy to assume that no marine creature, even a killer whale or orca, could defeat the great white shark, which has a reputation for being the ocean's most aggressive apex predator. But as shark content editor Dr. Blake Chapman pointed out in an Australian Geographic article last year, a battle to the death isn't just black and white. For one thing, orcas are much bigger and smarter than great whites, and they've been observed preying on the sharks, according to Science Focus. Several studies also point towards killer whales being the more formidable force. In recent years, researchers monitoring wildlife near California's southeast Farallon Island noticed that when orcas appeared in the region, all 17 of the great white sharks they were tracking fled and stayed away until the following season. There could be several reasons for this, including the possibility that killer whales hunt great whites, or that killer whales outcompete the sharks for food. When 5 dead great white sharks washed ashore in False Bay, South Africa last year, marine experts noticed that they had been sliced open and their livers were missing. Based on teeth marks in the carcasses, the researchers suspected that the sharks had fallen prey to orcas, who appeared to have ripped their victims open in a gory tug-of-war. Great whites lack a swim bladder, and their livers are very buoyant and fatty. For a killer whale, this amounts to a nutritious and delicious meal packed with high-energy lipids. Observations of orcas preying on great white sharks are rare, with the first known recorded instance happening in 1997. There have only been a handful of known occurrences since then, but the evidence is enough to challenge the long-held notion that great whites are a bigger threat to killer whales than the other way around. 5. Jaguar versus Cayman. During Nat Geo Wild's 8th annual Big Cat Week in 2017, the channel aired harrowing footage of a violent encounter between a jaguar and a cayman in the world's largest tropical wetland. Known as the Pantanal, it spans parts of Brazil, Paraguay, and Bolivia, and it's home to the planet's largest jaguars, according to USA Today. Nat Geo photographer Steve Winter and wildlife filmmaker Bertie Gregory captured the interspecies squabble while following a notorious jaguar who's named Scarface for his array of old battle wounds. The video shows Scarface quickly traveling through water in pursuit of a cayman, his latest target in a series of 14 failed hunts that the pair observed over a nearly week-long period. After being eluded by capybaras and giant river otters, Scarface finally succeeded in securing his next meal when he pounced on the 55-kilo reptile and snatched it up with his powerful jaws. Footage shows the big cat dragging his victim up onto the riverbank and into some bushes to feast. When it comes down to the question of who's more likely to win in a fight between a jaguar and a cayman, Winter implied that it's not exactly surprising that the mammal emerged victorious. The jaguars that live in the Pantanal weigh up to 136 kilos and are among nature's most formidable predators. But Scarface's defeat against the cayman, which is equipped with 74 sharp teeth and a powerful jaw and tail, is nevertheless impressive, especially since an estimated 85% of jaguar hunts in the area are unsuccessful. Number 4. Lion versus Tiger. It is extremely rare for lions and tigers to cross paths in the wild, but sometimes this happens in captivity and the results can be deadly, as one zoo in Cheongju, South Korea learned in 2008. While trying to catch a chicken that a zookeeper had thrown into his pen, a lion named Chongi fell about 16 feet or 5 meters into a trench that separated his enclosure from zoo visitors. A Siberian tiger named Hobie then jumped into the ditch. She landed poorly and Chongi fatally bit her neck. The two big cats were about equal in length, but the 243-pound lion outweighed Hobie by about 44 pounds, according to the Korea Times. A zookeeper told the news outlet that it was rare for a lion and a tiger to fight, but that Chongi seemed to think that Hobie had invaded his territory. He further explained that the winner in an interspecies squabble like this depends mostly on who gets a head start and acts more aggressively. Another unlikely encounter between a lion and a tiger happened in 2019 in India. Indian Forest Service officer Susanta Nanda captured the scuffle on video, which shows a lion approaching the tiger, biting its neck and swiping its paw at the fellow big cat. The tiger reacted swiftly, striking the lion across its face with its paw. For the lion, that was quite enough to prove that it was fighting a losing battle, and in a display of defeat, it walked away. Nanda told India Today that tigers fight like boxers and that their paws are powerful enough to smash a cow's skull. A lesson that the lion learned the hard way. Number 3. Cougars versus bears. Cougars, also called mountain lions, are one of North America's most feared predators. People are equally scared of bears, to be fair. While both actually have more reasons to fear us than the other way around, and typically flee in our presence, things tend to turn out differently when the two species come face to face with each other. Two videos that have circulated online offer a rare first-hand glimpse at these types of encounters. One contains Animal Planet footage showing a young cougar approaching a young, sleeping bear who doesn't seem to want to fight. As the bear backs cautiously away from the aggressor, the cougar advances forward, baring its claws, and attempts to pounce on the bear, who fights back and effectively wards off its attacker. But the cougar lingers nearby for some time before finally leaving the scene and allowing the bear to return to its den. Another video shows a much more violent encounter between an adult cougar and an adult brown bear. With two cubs nearby to protect, it's no wonder the cougar is quick to become aggressive, sinking her fangs into the bear's hide. The bear, who has no cubs, quickly gets the message and retreats from the scene. Number 2. Grizzly bears versus wolves. In 1995, a program was started to reintroduce grey wolves to Yellowstone Natural Park. Doug Smith, the Yellowstone Wolf Project's leader, revealed early last year that the interactions between grey wolves and grizzly bears constituted some of the most fascinating observations he had made since the program began. Grizzly bears are drawn to wolves' dens by the smell of the food that they bring to their young, according to Smith, and while bears are more powerful, wolves are faster and tend to outnumber bears. He likened the encounters to mosquitoes surrounding a larger specimen, stating that if there are enough of them, they'll win. The wolves aren't quick to give up when a bear comes near their den, but the dynamics change when a bear goes near wolf kills. Smith once watched as a bear took control of a dead bull elk that 24 wolves had taken down, helping himself to the meal while the entire pack looked on. Another time, 4 bears took turns feeding on an animal that 10 wolves had just killed. Come on, bears! Rare footage that made the rounds on social media late last year shows a wolf pack surrounding a lone grizzly after it tried to steal a carcass that they had hunted. Interestingly, as Smith pointed out, these encounters are rarely violent, but typically involves the wolves trying to harass a bear into leaving their meal alone. Number 1. Shark versus polar bear. While trying to figure out what was killing large number of harbour seals near the Svalbard archipelago back in 2008, researchers were stunned to find polar bear remains in the stomach of a Greenland shark. The discovery of a young polar bear's jawbone challenged the previously held belief that killer whales are the only real threat to the species. A clash between the deep-dwelling Greenland shark, which can grow to over 6 meters long, and the Arctic's top predator seemed unbelievable to the team. The experts speculated that perhaps polar bears are spending more time in the water due to climate change, which is melting polar ice and shrinking the species' habitat. They also theorized that warming waters are driving the Greenland shark northward. Shark experts were quick to point out the likelihood that the shark just fed on a polar bear carcass, and that even a young polar bear would be a formidable opponent against a Greenland shark. But nobody knows for sure whether the meal was scavenged or hunted by a very, very lucky shark. 10. Goblin Shark. As you go deeper and deeper into the vast ocean, the kinds of sharks you encounter get creepier and creepier. There's no better example of this than the goblin shark. This species of ghoulish shark lives at the very bottom of our ocean, primarily near the continental shelves. These are the edges of our continents. According to National Geographic, they grow up to be about 12 feet or 3.6 meters in length and over 450 pounds or 204 kilos. The main reason they are so terrifying is because, well, they honestly look like something you would only see in your worst nightmares. They have super narrow noses and sharp teeth that look a lot like vampire fangs. A Japanese fisherman accidentally caught one of these sharks and couldn't help but notice the protruding snout, which reminded him of legends about a long-nosed, red-faced demon known as the Tengu. So they started calling the species tengu zame. Zame means shark in Japanese, and this was translated into English as goblin shark. Unfortunately for us, because they live so incredibly deep, scientists don't know a lot about their behavior or why exactly they look the way they do. What we do know is that they are pretty slow creatures. They don't exactly swim fast. The goblin shark also has the disgusting ability to extend their jaws out 3 inches or 7.6 centimeters to catch prey, kind of like the xenomorph from the Alien movies. 9. Humpback anglerfish. There are a lot of different kinds of anglerfish in the ocean. These fish are easily recognizable because of the light bulb organ that sticks out of their head and dangles in front of their mouth like an illuminated fishing lure. But the deeper you go in the ocean, the more terrifying the anglerfish get. The scariest of all is the humpback anglerfish, which is only about 7 inches or 18 centimeters long. But for what it lacks in size, it makes up for in creepiness. These fish live about 6,600 feet, or roughly 2 kilometers deep, in an area of the ocean completely devoid of sunlight. Here are some characteristics of the humpback anglerfish that will paint you a clearer picture of just how creepy looking they really are. They have massive mouths and huge stomachs, along with ridiculously pointy teeth for skewering unsuspecting prey. The lure growing off their head is used to attract prey, and is actually filled with bacteria that glows in the dark. In the darkness where they live, other fish see this little light and are attracted to it. Once they get close enough to it, the anglerfish opens its jaws wide and gobbles them up. The fish is also able to hide or reveal its lure thanks to the muscular skin flaps on its head. What a sentence! This is one fish that people don't particularly want to eat. Nobody wants to stick one of these ugly fish on their dinner plate, but honestly, the brave people that have tasted this bizarre-looking fish said that it actually tastes a lot like lobster. Interesting. Because of how deep they live, fishing has basically no effect on their population. So, even though the humpback angler is probably not that rare, it's been pretty hard to study. 8. Elbow tentacles. A squid with elbow tentacles was recently discovered by science, and, well, it's absolutely horrifying. It looks like an alien and has only ever been seen 12 times in the wild. A recent expedition off the coast of Australia witnessed 5 of these monsters, the first time multiple alien squid have been caught hanging out in the same place. They also captured footage of the animal for the first time, revealing just how strange this deep-sea creature really is. It's called the big fin squid. It lives about 15,000 feet, or around 5 kilometers beneath the surface, and the species is exceptionally unique in the world of cephalopods because of its giant Dumbo-like fins and long and stringy tentacles. Scientists were able to measure one of the specimens using lasers, of course. They found its head was about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and the rest of its body, made up of tentacles sprouting from what appear to be elbows, was 5.9 feet or 1.8 meters. As you can tell, its tentacles were way bigger than its noggin. Unfortunately, considering how rare the big fin squid is, scientists don't know exactly what it does. They estimate the big fin can grow to be at least 22 feet or about 7 meters. Unlike other cephalopods, the big fin squid has its tentacles jutting out at strange angles, causing them to look all tangled and messy in the water, like floating spaghetti or extremely messy bedhead. Scientists still don't know what it even uses its tentacles for. Do you have any ideas for the use of these tentacles? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 7. Snailfish. Marine biologists from Tokyo and New Zealand recently discovered a new species of fish deep in the ocean in an area where they didn't think any fish actually lived. It's a type of snailfish, and they found it at just shy of 7,000 meters, or around 23,000 feet, in an ocean trench off the coast of Peru in the Southeast Pacific Ocean. Prior to this discovery, not a single fish has ever been captured in the area. Along with the strange fish, researchers witnessed eels and giant shrimp also residing in the depths. These might also be new species, but scientists still need to do a little bit more studying before they determine that. As for the snailfish, it's a weird one. Scientists weren't actually able to catch it. All they could do was take pictures of it. The fish is completely white. It has weird fins sticking out of its body like pale bat wings, and it seems to have 2 black eyes on the top of its head. Nobody knows what it eats or why it lives in such a remote and inhospitable part of the ocean, but it's definitely creepy. 6. Mariana jelly. In the Mariana Trench, which is the absolute deepest and most mysterious part of the entire ocean, scientists discovered a strange glowing jellyfish that was previously unknown to the world. This was thanks to scientists aboard the research vessel Okeanos Explorer with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They were surveying the waters around the trench when they came across a jellyfish that looked like a flying saucer. The jelly was red and yellow, it had its tentacles spread out like a net to catch unsuspecting prey, and it was living 2.3 miles or 3.7 kilometers beneath the surface. This is one of the deepest jellies ever found. It still doesn't even have a name yet. Do you have any name ideas? Drop it in the comments. As for why it was glowing, scientists believe it probably developed the ability as a way to attract food, aka prey. Small fish and sea creatures move towards its glowing body and get trapped in its net of tentacles, much like the lure of the anglerfish we mentioned previously. 5. Fish with super sight. There are fish that live so deep in the ocean, in places where sunlight can't reach, that have developed supervision. According to evolutionary biologists, this amazing ability is gifted to fish that live in the darkest parts of the ocean, thanks to an increase in the rhodopsin's genes. These genes produce retinal proteins capable of detecting dim light. When the genes increase enough, the fish are able to see even the smallest bit of light. Even more incredible is that the extra genes sometimes diversify to produce proteins which allow the fish to capture photons at multiple wavelengths. What this means is that some fish, even as they swim through total darkness, thousands of feet beneath the surface, see in perfect color. It's like wearing night vision goggles, only way better. One of these perceptive fish is the creepy silver spiny fin. It lives about 3,000 feet or 915 meters deep and has been discovered with specialized rod cells inside its eyes that allow it to see in ultra-low light. The rods inside its eyes have been developed in such a way that they're stacked to see what few photons are available at such depths. This is why the anglerfish's glowing lure and the jellyfish's glowing body are such great adaptations in the deep. Animals like the silver spiny fin can see these glowing signals like a forest fire from a mountaintop in the dead of night. 4. Deep sea monster. Recently, a rather terrifying-looking fish from the deep sea washed up on a beach in California in 2021, and nobody could figure out exactly what it was. The fish was found just lying on the sandy shore. Its body was entirely black, like jet black without a single hint of color. Even the disgusting fangs sticking out of its mouth were black, as if covered in some kind of weird wet ink. It was about the size of a football with a long stalk emerging from its head, looking like a broken piece of celery. At the end of the stalk were white tips experts say were probably bioluminescent. Judging by the size of its gaping mouth, this animal, when alive, could swallow prey the size of its body. Yikes! After the fish was discovered on the beach and curious witnesses uploaded photos online, experts came forward to identify it as a football fish. The football fish lives at least 3,300 feet, or just over a kilometer beneath the surface in darkness, and is one of the over 200 species of anglerfish. The only other blackfish specimen was caught back in 1985 by fishermen in Monterey Bay who accidentally trapped one in their net. It's such a rare fish that the specimen from '85 is still housed in the San Francisco Museum. 3. The black swallower. The black swallower has the most impressive stomach of any deep-sea fish, and with a name like that fact is pretty easy to believe, right? To give you an idea of how much food this fish can really eat, imagine stuffing yourself on an entire goat, swallowing the bones and everything, and then letting it digest inside your stomach, which in this fantasy is basically double the size of yourself. This is the black swallower, only around 10 inches or 25 centimeters long, yet capable of consuming fish significantly bigger than itself. It has a stomach that expands, much like a snake. This deep-sea adaptation is so incredibly effective that it can really eat a fish twice its own size, then keep it trapped inside its expanded stomach while the prey decomposes. This is helped by gas released from the stomach, which helps to quickly decompose whatever the fish just stuffed into its greedy face. These gases are so strong in its stomach that they can actually force the fish up from its home, thousands of feet in the blackness of the ocean, so high that it ends up bobbing on the surface. The range in which this fish lives is enormous and covers most parts of the ocean's waters, preferably in subtropic and tropic areas. It's impossible to determine how many individuals of this species are actually lurking in the ocean right now, because their range is so huge, they are listed as least concern in the ICUN Red List. This means this species is far from being an endangered one, and because their conditions aren't likely to change anytime soon, this status will likely be the same for a long time to come. 2. Armored sea robin. It doesn't get much creepier than the armored sea robin. It's a super creepy fish that lives relatively deep, around 1,000 feet or 304 meters beneath the surface. Like our friend the Goblin Shark, it also kind of looks like an evil demon fish. It has red, pinkish skin. Its head is very large and its body looks like the end of some medieval weapon. It also has a pair of pointy whiskers covered in what seem to be spikes. It's not the prettiest animal in the ocean, and you should probably stay far away from it. The armored sea robin belongs to the Peristetidae family, of which there are about 45 species. It really does have armor too. Covering the sea robin's body are bony scutes that act as nearly impenetrable armor. But because its body is so slim, it doesn't look very strong. Instead, it looks charmingly like half of someone's spine covered in red gunk, just crawling across the seabed. Number 1. Glowing shark. Scientists have made what can only be described as the coolest ocean discovery of the century. According to Smithsonian Magazine, researchers off the coast of New Zealand have discovered a glowing shark living deep in the ocean. It's called the kitefin shark, and it's one of 3 species now known to science that literally glows in the dark. The shark can grow to be about 6 feet or 1.8 meters long, and it gives off a cool blue luminescence. It's actually the biggest known species of vertebrate on Earth that glows. It was found in 2020 at a depth of 3,300 feet or just over a kilometer beneath the surface. As we already know from all the creepy animals we looked at today, glowing in the deep ocean is pretty common. However, this is the first time the biomechanical mechanism was found in a shark. Researchers haven't figured out how the sharks glow or even why. One theory is that its glowing belly could make it more difficult to see by fish beneath it. Thanks to its shimmering stomachs, it just kind of blends in with the upper luminous atmosphere of the ocean. And at the same time, its belly helps to illuminate the ocean beneath it, almost like a helicopter spotlight that helps in the never-ending search for food. 10. Zombie worms. Ocedax is Latin for bone eater, which is an appropriate term for the genus of marine creatures that also goes by their more common nickname, zombie worm. At first glance, the organisms look a bit like plants, but they're a type of aquatic worm that secretes acids, enabling them to bore deep into the bones of dead animals. Because they lack a mouth and a stomach, they're also equipped with special bacteria that convert the proteins and fats from the bones into nutrients. Zombie worms display something called sexual dimorphism, with females measuring up to 5 centimeters long, while their male counterparts are microscopic and don't develop past their larval stage. Scientists discovered the Ocedax genus in 2002 on the skeleton of a rotting grey whale at a depth of around 3,000 meters. They are still learning about these creatures, with some experts speculating that zombie worms feed specifically on whale bones, while others are less quick to assume that they're such picky eaters. In one experiment, they readily colonized cow bones that were suspended near the seafloor. Critics allege that this test was unrealistic because it's highly unlikely for terrestrial animal bones to descend to the bottom of the ocean, let alone a random cow, and is therefore not a realistic basis for gauging the zombie worm's food preferences or habits. For as little as we know about them, worms resembling the Ocedax have been found in dinosaur fossils dating as far back as 100 million years ago. 9. Dumbo octopus. The Grimbotuthus genus encompasses at least 15 of the world's deepest dwelling octopus species, which are found around 4,000 meters below the water's surface. At such extreme depths, they are used to extremely cold temperatures and pitch-black levels of darkness. Measuring just 20 to 30 centimeters long on average, they're nicknamed Dumbo octopuses for their 2 large fins that protrude like giant elephant ears from their pale, bell-shaped bodies. While some people think these creatures are cute, there's no denying that they're also quite strange looking. They have slender protrusions on their suckers known as cirri, and scientists believe these body parts are used for feeding, but are admittedly unsure what their purpose is, according to National Geographic. Unlike other octopuses, Dumbo octopuses do not travel through the water by forcefully expelling water from their siphons, a process called jet propulsion. Instead, they swim by slowly flapping their fins with the help of webbing between their arms, which causes them to resemble an umbrella, hence their other nickname, umbrella octopuses. Dumbo octopuses also lack an ink sac because they rarely encounter predators in their deep habitat. Lucky them! Because these unique animals are rare, they have adapted specialized behaviors that help them reproduce efficiently. Females are equipped with eggs at all stages of development and can store sperm for later use, enabling them to transfer it to their eggs long after mating. 8. Barrel-eye fish. First described in 1939, the elusive barrel-eye fish, Macropina microstoma, is named for its tubular eyes, which are set inside its transparent head. Scientists know very little about this alien-like creature, which they consider to be one of the most peculiar species found in the ocean's pelagic zone, at depths of up to around 200 meters. A 2009 study, building on previous knowledge that the fish's eyes are very adept at collecting light, found that the barrel-eye's transparent head is probably an adaptation that also helps it to see in the pitch darkness of its environment. The findings also disproved the previously held belief that the fish's eyes are fixed in a way that only allows it to look upward. Researchers based their conclusions on observations gathered from the rare opportunity to study the barrel eye when a live specimen was brought to the surface for a few hours and managed to stay alive. They noticed that the fish's eyes are not only capable of rotating, but that they're green, which they believe can help filter out sunlight from overhead and also help the fish spot bioluminescent prey. But many questions remain regarding the 19 known barrel-eye fish species, including exactly how their vision works and whether their unusually short body is some kind of bizarre evolutionary adaptation. 7. A strange sound. In 2016, scientists captured the first audio recordings from the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, known as the Challenger Deep, which extends 10.9 kilometers below the water's surface. The creepy clips consist of low rumbles, strange moans, and high-pitched screeches, including a 3.5-second recording that contains a mixture of moaning, metallic twang, and other bizarre noises that scientists fail to connect to any human or geological source. After ruling out ships, seismic air guns, earthquakes, ice, and other causes, researchers were left baffled. Dubbed the Western Pacific Biotwang, the mixture of mystery sounds was unlike anything else they had ever heard, and they captured it several times. They eventually determined that the noise must have biological origins. In other words, it was made by an unknown living creature. After comparing it to another bizarre vocalization that was recorded in the Great Barrier Reef in 2001, scientists concluded, based on frequency and structure similarities, that the unidentified concoction of sounds is likely a dwarf minke whale call. The dwarf minke whale is a baleen whale and a subspecies of the common minke whale, which is known for making some of the ocean's strangest sounds. This mystery is still far from solved, especially since the Western Pacific Biotwang was recorded at different times of the year. Yet baleen whale calls are typically associated with mating, which occurs mainly during the winter. While the findings are a good starting point for further research, they're still hardly conclusive. What do you think the sound was? My money's on Godzilla. Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. 6. Deep sea hatchet fish. Named after their hatchet-like body shape, the 45 or so known hatchetfish species hail from the Steranopticidae family of deep-sea fishes and are found at depths of around 180 to 1,400 meters. They have extremely thin bodies and range in size from 2.5 to 15 centimeters long, with the largest species being the giant hatchetfish, Argiopelicus gigas. Hatchetfish have large, upward-facing eyes that are extremely light-sensitive and capable of detecting shadows from above. They are also equipped with photophores that run along their underside and produce light via a chemical reaction similar to that of the firefly. Scientists believe that hatchetfish use their photophores to hide from predators by adjusting the light level to match the faint light from overhead, and that the photophores may also play a role in mating. But their knowledge of the creature's mating habits and life cycle is limited, since it's incredibly difficult to study deep-dwelling marine life with our current technologies. While most experts agree that hatchetfish have a lifespan of roughly a year, and that they probably migrate to shallower waters to feed at night, much of this knowledge is speculative at best, showing just how much we have to learn about our underexplored oceans. 5. Fanfin sea devil. If you're familiar with anglerfish, you probably know they're some of the most nightmarish-looking fish on the planet, with gaping mouths full of razor-sharp teeth and strange lures protruding from their heads. There are about 168 known anglerfish species, and choosing which one is the ugliest would be pretty difficult. One possible contender is the Fanfin sea devil. Found in the bathyal zone at depths of between 100 to 1500 meters, this pitch-black species has an array of bioluminescent tentacles. Females grow up to 20 centimeters long, while males are no more than a half inch, which is 1.27 centimeters long. Until 2018, humans had never witnessed a live specimen. That year, a group of researchers captured footage of a mating pair nearly 800 meters underwater. Anglerfish engage in one of the most bizarre reproductive processes in the animal kingdom, known as sexual parasitism, when males latch onto females and live off their blood supply. The male becomes permanently fused to the female and depends on her entirely for nutrients. Meanwhile, his eyes, fins, and all his internal organs, except for his sexual organs, just degenerate. Finding a mate is difficult in the deep sea, which is why scientists think anglerfish evolved such a drastic way of procreating. Talk about sacrificing everything for the sake of love. Number 4. Benthicodon. The benthicodon is an unusual type of jellyfish and a small predatory creature known as a hydrozoan. There are two known species, B. hyalinus and B. petungulatus, and both prefer to live at depths lower than 25,000 feet. The creature's rounded top, or bell, typically measures between 1.9 to 3 centimeters in diameter and has an estimated 1,500 red tentacles attached to it, which it uses for propelling itself through the water. Unlike most other jellyfish, which are transparent, the benthicodon is an opaque red color. Scientists believe this may help to conceal the bioluminescent glow of small crustaceans and other organisms the benthicodon eats, thereby protecting it from predators. Although the benthicodon is found in the Mariana Trench, it has a widespread presence throughout the Arctic and Pacific Oceans, where it can be found living near the seafloor. It's one of many deep-sea creatures that scientists just don't know much about, given the difficulties associated with observing and studying them in their natural environment. Number 3. Mariana snailfish. Found at depths between around 6,000 to 8,000 meters, the Mariana snailfish is one of very few creatures that can survive in the ocean's deepest region, known as the Hadal Zone. It was discovered in late 2014 using deep-water traps during the expedition of the research vessel Falkor, and is one of only 3 species ever caught at a depth of 8,000 meters or lower. Measuring up to around 30 centimeters long, this pale, tadpole-like species lives near what scientists consider to be the theoretical maximum depth possible for fish. In other words, they don't think it's possible for fish to live much deeper. Good job, little snailfish! The Mariana snailfish has special adaptations that help it survive in the complete absence of light, and the extreme pressure that comes with being kilometers beneath the surface, which equals the weight of 1,600 elephants, according to National Geographic. This species has no pigment, is translucent, with no scales and very thin muscles. It is either nearly or completely blind, and the ossification of its bones, namely the skull, is incomplete. Even at a cellular level, the Mariana snailfish is specially equipped for life in the deep, with specialized membranes that allow the cells to maintain their flexibility. It also lays unusually large eggs, measuring up to 9.4 millimeters in diameter, which is also thought to be an adaptation to its habitat. Number 2. Telescope octopus. To observe a telescope octopus, Amphitrechus pelagicus, in its natural habitat, you would have to travel at least 1,900 meters below the surface of the Indian or Pacific Ocean. It's transparent to the point of being nearly colorless and has 8 arms that are all the same size and have a delicate webbing between them. The fascinating telescope octopus possesses several traits that make it distinct from other octopi. For one, it does not swim horizontally near the seafloor, but instead suspends itself vertically and drifts through the water. Scientists believe this could make it more difficult for predators to spot the creature from below. Additionally, the species has 2 tubular, rotating eyeballs that give it wide peripheral vision, enabling it to spot more predators and prey, hence its fun nickname. Researchers can't quite explain the evolutionary mechanisms behind these bizarre peepers, and the telescope octopus is the one of its kind that has them. Some scientists believe that this and a few other species have evolved to spend their entire lives in a larval stage. This phenomenon, known as neoteny, is characterized by slowed or delayed physiological development as well as sexual maturity during the juvenile phase. Number 1. Deep-sea dragonfish. Hailing from the Stomidae family, the 57 known deep-sea dragonfish species live at depths between 200 to 2,000 meters. They're quite small, measuring just 15 to 26 centimeters long, but these apex predators are nevertheless terrifying, with fang-like teeth and enormous jaws that can open up to 120 degrees, enabling them to catch prey more than 50% greater than their standard length, and making them look like something straight out of a horror movie. These adaptations help deep-sea dragonfish get enough to eat in an environment that is extremely lacking of variety and abundance of food. Like many deep-sea fish, these creatures are bioluminescent, meaning they produce their own light through a bodily chemical process using organs we've mentioned before, known as photophores, which are on the sides of the fish's body and at the end of a long string-like barbel that protrudes from its chin. The deep-sea dragonfish waves this barbel back and forth to attract both prey and mates. These creatures are the only fish capable of generating and seeing red light, which gives them a significant advantage over other deep-dwelling marine creatures. By emitting red light, deep-sea dragonfish can look for prey without other animals noticing, since they can't even see it. Scientists even believe that they may use this special ability to communicate with one another. But red light does not travel far underwater, so the fish must get pretty close to its prey before going in for the kill. Thankfully, deep-sea dragonfish are extremely dark, which also helps them stealth in on their target unnoticed. 10. Mega grizzly bears. Bears are one of the fiercest predators in the wild, sending chills down the spines of campers everywhere. Although they look cute and cuddly, their claws definitely are not. The same goes for their ancient ancestors from the Ice Age, all the way back 20,000 years ago in North America. Back then, they were known as short-faced bears, or by their scientific name, Octopus. They were one of the biggest and strongest predators around, ruling over the icy landscape. The bears weighed up to 900 kilos, and when walking on all four of their massive limbs, they still reached 2 meters in height. And when they were angry or ready to fight, standing on their hind legs, that height more than doubled. That's over twice the height of the average human. You would not want this bear trying to steal your picnic basket, that's for sure. In fact, just give it to him. There are officially 2 recognized species of short-faced bears seen in the Americas, the lesser short-faced bear and the giant short-faced bear. The latter is considered to be one of the largest mammalian carnivores to have ever existed. We can't exactly tell whether or not the short-faced bears were fearsome hunters without traveling back in time, but their fossils tell us they certainly had the capability to be. Scientists suspect they were able to run at speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour. That's more than quick enough to take on most small prey. This, paired with their incredible sense of smell, made them frightening beasts by our standards. Wouldn't want to face one right now, would you? Are you afraid of bears? Let me know in the comments below. 9. Icy Lions. Giant bears weren't the only predators living in North America during the Ice Age. As strange as it might sound, lions used to roam the terrain of what is now the United States. And no, you may be thinking of mountain lions, and these may be distant relatives of them, but these icy lions were even bigger than the African lions we have today. Nicknamed the American lion, the Panthera leoatrox weighed nearly 370 kilos apiece, some even more. The predator was dwarfed only by the short-faced bear as far as its size. At its shoulder, it stood 1.2 meters tall. Similar to the African lion, Panthera leoatrox liked to hunt in plains and grasslands, although they did not hunt in packs like their well-known descendant. It was a lone predator while hunting, but likely returned home to a pride, using caves and deep rock formations as its den. Evidence of similar lions can be found lined on cave walls left by our own human ancestors in France and Russia. This shows us that the American lion likely had faint stripes on its coat, rather than the solid-colored lions we know now. It also didn't have a mane. Some preserved skin from the animal was also discovered alongside some of its skeletal remains. After analyzing it, scientists concluded the lion to have been a slightly reddish color. About 80 fossils of the beast have been uncovered in the La Brea tar pits located near Los Angeles. With so many samples to study, researchers have been able to learn a lot about how American lions used to live and how truly terrifying they once were. 8. Giant sloths. Shifting away from carnivorous beasts, the Megalonyx jeffersoni was a predator of its own, though its prey was mostly of the plant variety. In modern-day West Virginia, during the latter half of the 1700s, a giant claw fossil was discovered. Met with great excitement from locals, they wondered what this vicious-looking claw could have belonged to. Even former President Thomas Jefferson, then acting as the head of the American Philosophical Society, was convinced that it must have belonged to a monster of a beast. The former president was quoted describing what he thought the beast looked like. Let us only say, then, that he was more than 3 times as large as the lion. He even went as far as warning the famous Lewis and Clark to watch out for giant lions as they journeyed west. Jefferson would probably be disappointed to find out that the claw did not belong to a monster, but a giant sloth. Though this sloth isn't like the ones we know today, looking all sweet hanging upside down on a tree, or talking super slow in popular movies like Zootopia. These sloths weighed almost the same, in many cases more than the short-faced bear, the biggest carnivore of its time period. This huge sloth could weigh up to 1,000 kilos. They stood 3 meters tall and moved slowly and awkwardly. Its arms had 3 massive claws that were used to strip leaves and branches from the trees it fed on. Though if you somehow saw one during the Ice Age, you likely wouldn't be attacked, unless you provoked it, of course. The Megalonyx jeffersoni is a noteworthy creature of the Pleistocene epoch. 7. Direwolves. Popularized from the mega-hit TV show Game of Thrones and similar fantasy fiction, direwolves are more than the made-up stories they got their fame from. That's right, the giant canines were real. Our human ancestors living during the Ice Age had to deal with the massive beasts, and they would not have been domesticated. Instead, they'd probably be trying to eat you. Although there could have been someone back in the day that had a puppy or two, you'd never know. Scientifically known as Canis dirus, direwolves were similar to the wolves we have today, just much heavier. Their heads were huge, containing large jaws and teeth that allowed them to have a powerful bite. They were able to take on all kinds of large prey: camels, bison, horses, giant sloths, and even small mammoths. According to some researchers, they tended to hunt in packs, but unlike modern wolves, they just couldn't run long distances. This forced them to resort to ambush tactics for their prey, leading experts to believe they were a highly intelligent species. Direwolves were thought to have originally evolved in South America, eventually traveling north on the hunt for food. However, America's grey wolves today are believed to have an Asian descent, making the two species more distant relatives than expected. Their many similarities have been attributed to convergent evolution, the process of two species independently evolving similar features. Remains of the direwolf have been found over a large range of habitats such as plains, forested mountains, South American savannas, and forested North American mountains. These fossils show us that the direwolf lived as close as 9,500 years ago. Although it would be pretty cool to have a pet direwolf like Jon Snow, these ferocious beasts would have dominated ecosystems if they were still around today. 6. Saber-toothed cat. Movies like Ice Age showing friendly versions of ancient animals do a good job of introducing young audiences to historic beasts, but the movies do lack some harsh truths about fan favorites like the saber-toothed tiger. Their scientific name is Smilodon, and although this sounds like a friendly beast, they were fierce predators. Other than the woolly mammoth, the Smilodon is likely the most widely known prehistoric mammal. The creature first received its name back in 1842 when its fossils were discovered in Brazil. Its name quite literally means scalpel or two-edged knife, based on its incredible teeth. The upper canines they were named for came in a pair, and they were over 7 inches long. The Smilodon even weighed close to 600 pounds, or nearly 280 kilos. The skilled hunters were able to take down bison, deer, camels, and other prey. Similar to the direwolf, scientists theorized that the saber-toothed cat had to rely on ambush tactics for hunting. Since its teeth were susceptible to breaking, the cat would first surprise its prey by leaping onto it, restraining it with the cat's claws, then use its teeth for the final, fatal blow. The Smilodon lived in closed habitats like forests that would have given it ample cover for hunting. Sadly, the beast died out around 10,000 years ago along with other creatures like it. Researchers surmise that it became extinct due to its reliance on larger prey animals paired with climate change. Number 5. Irish elk. Another herbivore earned its spot here with its massive size. Commonly referred to as the Irish elk, scientifically named the Megaloceros giganteus, the ancient deer had some of the largest antlers to have ever existed. They measured as long as most humans are tall and could weigh up to 20 kilos each. As a whole, the deer likely weighed around 700 kilos and was about the size of an Alaskan moose. The initial discovery of its antlers shocked archaeologists. Jens Christian Svenning from the Aarhus University located in Denmark said, "People thought, how did these creatures move around with such enormous antlers? Wouldn't they be constantly bashing into trees?" But in those cold periods there were glaciers and tundra, and it was pretty open. That's why these creatures could do so well. And they were doing pretty well for themselves, until humans and Neanderthals entered the picture, that is. With their massive size, the Irish elk became a quick target for hunting. And those impressive antlers? Well, the hunting groups used to force the creature into wooded areas, making it difficult for the animal to maneuver around, and easy for the hunters to trap and kill it. It was a beautiful creature though, and it probably made for a beautiful feast to ancient humans. 4. Cave hyena. Famously known for its creepy, cackling-type laugh, hyenas have haunted the savannas for much longer than you might suspect. They are even traced back as far as the Ice Age with their ancestors named cave hyenas. This is a fun one. The Latin name is Crocuta spellii. They measured about 1 meter high and 1.5 meters long, weighing around 225 kilos. Similar to their African cousins that live today, cave hyenas were fierce avengers and predators, hunting in open plains mainly. They were known to live and hunt in social groups of up to 30. After studying remains found of the creatures, researchers have concluded that the hyenas would eat pretty much anything they could get their hands on. They are more known to be scavengers, but also have the ability to hunt in the hopes of a decent meal. The remains say that a majority of their meals consisted of prehistoric wild horses and giant woolly rhinoceroses, which were both plentiful during the time. Interestingly enough, cave hyenas and Neanderthals have a close history together. The hyenas would often live in caves, and Neanderthals would sometimes evict them out of their cave homes to claim it as their own. Then the hyenas would eventually retake their home. This game of back and forth is linked to the reasoning behind why cave hyenas would often change homes, not staying in the same place for too long for fear of an unwelcome eviction notice. Who knew landlords had been around that long? Like all the animals on this list, the cave hyenas eventually went extinct. Due to competition for food, the predator eventually had to resort to smaller animals that offered little sustenance. This change of diet would inevitably seal their fate. Number 3. Diatrima. Many people bring up the dodo first when discussing prehistoric birds, but there's one type of ancient bird most have never even heard about, known as the diatrima or gastornis. The diatrima was about 2.25 meters tall. It had smaller wings that were unused and giant, thick legs, leading scientists to think they were incredibly fast runners. The bird also had a strong beak, and because of the beak's size, it also had a large head to support it. Its neck was fairly short, with only 13 vertebrae, and it also had a short torso, making for an awkward-looking bird at best. The first gastornis fossils were discovered in 1855 at the Argyle Plastique Formation near Paris. Because of the sheer size of the specimen, there was a lot of excitement for its discovery. It was also one of the oldest known birds at the time. There has been a long-standing debate about the gastornis's diet and whether or not it was carnivorous. Due to its beak and legs, some researchers argue it would have been more than able to catch quick prey, leading to the belief of it being an ambush predator. Others suggest that the massive skull size and structure was perfect for a herbivore diet. It's even possible the bird was an omnivore. Whatever it was, this awkward-looking giant dodo bird would have been terrifying to be chased down by. 2. Giant beavers. Yep, we said that right, giant beavers. As the last herbivore predator on the list, and the largest known rodent in North America, these giant beavers, also known as castoroides, may have had a plant-based diet, but they were vicious when it came to protecting what was theirs. With massive front incisor teeth, they were able to gouge into any bigger carnivorous predators coming to get them. No thanks! Their teeth acted as 15-centimeter long protectors. They weighed close to 77 kilos, had long tails, and webbed feet. The shape of the beaver's skull indicates that it spent long periods of time underwater. Thankfully, their lungs also had the capability to take in more oxygen, which enabled their watery adventures. One big difference between our beavers today and these ancient ones is that their brain was much smaller. No evidence has been found indicating that the castoroides built dams in the water, which was likely due to their smaller brain size, linked to less complex thoughts and interactions with the environments they lived in. Number 1. American cheetah. There have been a lot of felines on our list, so it only makes sense to wrap things up with one too. Similar to the American lion, a distant cousin comes with a few more spots as the ancient American cheetah. This cheetah stood roughly 85 centimeters tall at its shoulder and weighed around 70 kilos. Unlike the cheetah we see on National Geographic today, the American cheetah was more than likely not a fast runner. It had much shorter legs than its modern counterpart, which were equipped for climbing rather than running. This cat lived in prairies or plains in North America and was a predator to hoofed animals like horses, bison, and pronghorns. Fossil evidence shows that the American cheetah competed for food with other fierce felines of the day, like saber-toothed tigers and cave hyenas. It truly was a battle of the cats during the Ice Age. 10. Bear break-ins. There's nothing quite scarier than having a bear break into your house. Bears are massive, powerful, territorial creatures. The last thing anyone needs is one of these beasts in their very own territory. Yet that's exactly what happened in the Canadian province of British Columbia in 2021. During the brutal heatwave that cooked much of Western North America, bears were busy robbing people's homes. On June 26 alone, the BC Conservation Officer Service responded to at least 3 different reports of bears simply walking into people's houses like they owned them. That was in a span of only 24 hours. People all throughout the Vancouver region were being burgled by bears. One of the biggest issues was that people were leaving their doors open to try and cool down their houses. This resulted in bears strolling right in through the open thresholds to try and get some snacks. Imagine a bear on your front porch peeking through your screen door. Hello? Anyone home? Nobody was injured, but several people had to cower, hide, and phone the police because a huge black bear was rummaging through their kitchen. I mean, forget being cooked alive by the sun. People were nearly mauled to death in their own homes by bears. 9. Mountain lion attack. Travis Kaufman was going for a run one day, like he normally did in Colorado, when he heard something strange on the trail behind him. He turned to see what was making the noise and felt a wave of fear wash over him, because 3 meters away from him was his worst nightmare. It was a mountain lion, and it had its hungry eyes set on Travis. At 31 years old, Travis may have been in peak physical condition, but he still wasn't that eager to do hand-to-hand combat with a giant cat. Unfortunately, the cat didn't give him much of a choice. Travis did what he was supposed to. He threw his hands over his head and screamed, but the mountain lion wasn't scared. It instead ran right for him and tried to bite his head off. Luckily, Travis threw his hands in front of his face to block the animal's attack. It turned into an all-out brawl, with Travis and the cat rolling across the trail, each trying to kill the other. According to what Travis told local news afterward, his fear immediately turned into survival, rage, and he was caught up in the heat of the moment. As horrible as it is, Travis had no choice but to kill the attacking animal. He managed to mount the mountain lion, grab a rock off the ground, and pummel it in the skull like some sort of crazy WWE move. But it still wouldn't let up. Travis ended up strangling the cat until it finally let go of him, at which point he ran away down the trail. He ran into some hikers who helped get him to the hospital, where he needed 17 stitches on his cheek and 6 on his nose. When wildlife authorities went to investigate the scene of the attack, they found the wild cat dead. Travis had defeated the beast. Do you think you would have been able to? 8. Roaming street dogs. In West Indianapolis, a pack of violent dogs was recently caught after attacking local pets and residents, and in some cases killing neighborhood animals. Even after multiple complaints filed with the Animal Control Department, the dogs have still yet to be captured and are continuing to terrorize the neighborhood. One of the residents who experienced the brutality of these roaming street dogs firsthand was Felicia Sosa, who was minding her own business in her front yard when 2 pit bulls came out of nowhere and tried to eat her chihuahuas. The tiny dogs managed to get away, though one of them needed stitches for wounds inflicted on his throat and neck, and Sosa herself just about got torn apart too. Just a few months later, the same dogs showed back up at Sosa's house and killed her cat, which was hanging out on a back deck. Was this revenge? But the attacks didn't even end there. Several other neighborhood pets were ravaged by these angry pit bulls too. The worst part is that the neighbors eventually figured out who the dogs belonged to. Somebody in the neighborhood wasn't able to keep his dogs inside, and they were repeatedly breaking out of the backyard and terrorizing the neighborhood. But because they didn't attack any humans, there was nothing animal control could do about it. What would you do if one of your neighbor's dogs kept getting out and attacking everyone's pets? Let us know in the comments section down below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 7. Rampaging Coyotes. A woman from Woodland Hills recently survived being attacked by a pack of 12 coyotes. According to the report from CBS Los Angeles, the curious coyotes had been coming down from the hills and roaming the local neighborhoods like animal ninjas at night under the cover of darkness. In the last couple of years, the pack has nearly doubled in size and become a real nuisance. The attack happened when two coyotes managed to break through the front gate of Michael Seabolt's property. It was a trick. The coyotes broke the gate, Michael's family dog ran after them, and his wife wasn't far behind. But by the time she reached the end of the road, she realized her mistake. There were 12 coyotes waiting for her and her dog, and they attacked without mercy. Luckily, a neighbor heard the commotion and came to help. And just in time too, because Seabolt's dog was in the middle of being torn apart. The dog suffered a series of deep cuts and the woman was nearly mauled by the ferocious canids, but the neighbor's intervention sent them scurrying away. It's believed the coyotes have a den in the area, though wildlife officials haven't been able to find it. So, as of right now, no one in Woodland Hills is safe from the rampaging coyotes. 6. Attack of the Sharks. During the filming of Blue Planet 2, the epic wildlife show narrated by David Attenborough, the film crew was attacked by sharks in horrifying unaired footage that was recently uploaded online. A group of 6 skilled sharks attacked the film crew while they were trying to get footage in their underwater submarine. The team was at a depth of around 2,100 feet, filming what happens to a whale carcass when it floats to the bottom of the sea. What they didn't expect was for the hungry sharks to forget about the whale corpse and go after them. The 6 gill sharks were at least 18 feet long each, with huge teeth and powerful bodies. One of the crew members can be heard in the footage saying, "They're huge, I've never seen anything like this." But unfortunately, the sharks became insanely aggressive, especially since there was food around. They must have thought the submarine was competition and was there to steal their easy meal. So the sharks attacked the sub, smashing their huge bodies against the glass and snapping at each other. It became a serious problem, as even though the submarine was tough and made of metal, the sharks appeared to be tougher. The crew had to abandon the project and quickly move the submarine away from the situation. And in the nick of time too, just before the sharks shattered the glass and ate them alive. 5. Snakes in the attic. A woman in Australia got the fright of a lifetime when she discovered a pair of snakes battling it out in her attic. She heard weird noises and went upstairs to investigate, and was horrified to see 2 giant male pythons locked in an epic battle to the death. It was mating season, and the 2 snakes were probably battling for a nearby female. Well, this woman was not super interested in giant snakes brawling in her attic, so she called in a professional to remove the serpents. She was actually very lucky that their fighting didn't break through a ceiling and come crashing down in her living room. She was also lucky to get the snakes out of her house when she did, as having a bunch of giant pythons slithering through your walls sounds like a sure way to get eaten while you're asleep. 4. Attack of the Grizzly. In Montana, a cyclist was camping when she got brutally mauled to death by a grizzly bear. The last thing any cyclist wants is to be ripped apart by a huge set of bear paws, and yet that's exactly what happened near the small town of Ovando when the victim was pulled out of her tent by the hungry grizzly. 2 days after the terrifying attack, wildlife agents, with the help of local law enforcement, were still searching for the wild animal, desperate to put it down before it killed again. The victim was Leah Loken, a 65-year-old woman from California who was camping overnight while on a long-haul bicycling trip. According to what Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks said, Loken was in her tent with 2 other people when they were woken up by the bear. This happened at about 3 o'clock in the morning. They managed to scare the bear away and fell back asleep. However, the bear apparently wasn't done and came back for round 2. It ripped the tent open, dragged Loken out of it, and by the time the other campers managed to bust out their bear spray and scare the monster off, she was dead, ripped to shreds like a wolverine in wet paper bag. This might be one of those situations where a gun might come in handy, especially in bear country. 3. Human-hippo conflict. One of the weirder side effects of the COVID-19 pandemic has been an increase in the amount of people getting killed by hippopotamuses. As outrageous as that sounds, National Geographic says it is 1,000% true. According to them, because of the economic fallout from the pandemic, more people in Kenya have turned to fishing. More fishermen means more people at the water, which means more opportunity for hippos to attack. Hippos actually kill more people in Africa than any other animal, including lions and crocodiles. The story George Mora told National Geographic is one of the most recent tragedies. He went fishing with his close friend Babu on the shores of Lake Naivasha. They couldn't afford a boat, so they simply waded into the water to reel in their fishing traps. Sounds like a dangerous idea with hippos around. And that was when the hippo attacked. It first launched at Moora, but he was able to dodge the huge beast. So the hippo went for his friend Babu. Babu was not able to swim. When the hippo clamped down on his little body with its huge teeth, the young fisherman was sadly done for. There was nothing anyone could do, even with dozens of locals running to the edge of the water, desperate to help. By the time the hippo stopped thrashing in the water and let go of Babu, it was as if he'd been bludgeoned by a dozen men with sledgehammers. The poor guy was barely recognizable. 2. Siberian tiger runs over farmer. A Siberian tiger recently performed a hit and run that terrified local villagers to their core. It happened in Russia, where the tiger allegedly crossed the border from China and then attacked a car full of people before running over a female farmer in its fury. This bizarre incident happened in the village of Tari Roj, with the huge 200-pound big cat charging a vehicle. It hit the car so hard that it left a dent, before turning to run away and accidentally ramming into the lady farmer who had, for some insane reason, gotten out of the car in her panic. Please, never ever do this. She was very lucky the tiger kept on running and didn't want to eat her. She suffered a bit of trauma but was otherwise uninjured. The tiger, who was also by definition an illegal immigrant, was then captured by wildlife specialists, given a medical checkup, and was due to be released back into the wild. Hopefully, it's learned to stay away from the highway. Number 1. Angry bobcat. Speaking of angry cats, a bobcat recently attacked someone in North Carolina. According to the victim, Scott Jackson, the growl of the terrifying feline was still ringing in his head 3 weeks after the attack that almost turned deadly. This happened in June, when Scott pulled up to his house with groceries. He noticed his chickens were acting weird, running in circles and freaking out. He also heard a low growl, but had never anticipated there was a dangerous cat trying to eat his chickens, and now that it had turned its attention on him. The bobcat had somehow gotten underneath the back of his car while he was grabbing groceries. Scott noticed the animal, but it was too late. The cat pounced on him, trying to scratch his face off. The attack only lasted about 5 seconds, but Scott was left injured and needed to go immediately to the nearest hospital. The cat had ripped apart his left shoulder and left him covered in savage bite marks. The ER doctor told Scott he was lucky to be alive. He was also lucky that he went to the hospital right away. As it turned out, the bobcat was rabid, and rabies is scary. Scott had to get a few rounds of rabies vaccinations to stop him from turning rabid himself.
Number 10. Titanoboa. Topping off our list of the biggest animals that have ever existed is the longest and largest and the most terrifying snake that has ever slithered the earth. I'm of course talking about the legendary Titanoboa, which is an extinct snake that thrived on our planet between 66 million and 56 million years ago. Only a few fossils have been discovered of the Titanoboa, but from what scientists can piece together, this beast was at least 42 feet or 12 metres in length on average, weighing about 1.25 tonnes. That's around 2,500 pounds. To put that into perspective, some of the biggest and most formidable anacondas on Earth today only grow on average to be about 21 feet or 6.5 metres and a couple of 100 pounds. The Titanoboa had more than 250 vertebrae and was about as thick as a door frame. This animal literally could have opened its mouth and swallowed a human without breaking a sweat. It's believed that the Titanoboa spent a lot of time in the water, where they hid in the lush jungle vegetation and were ambush hunters, just like anacondas do today. As for where these monstrous beasts lived, almost all the fossils have been discovered in Colombia. It's highly likely that the Titanoboa was the undisputed king of South America way back when the continent was a superheated swamp with other giant creatures roaming through the rivers and marshes. Number 9. Blue whale. Moving forward in time, the blue whale is the largest animal ever recorded to swim across our planet's oceans and is still very much alive today. A single blue whale can measure up to 100 feet or 30 metres in length, which is roughly the length of 3 school buses back to back. The gargantuan blue whale also weighs in at around 440,000 pounds. That's 200,000 kilos. And if that doesn't sound like a lot to you for whatever reason, the tongue of the blue whale alone weighs as much as a standard elephant. Just imagine for a second an animal whose tongue is as heavy as an African elephant. It's hard to comprehend. But the amazing facts about the biggest animal do not end there. The blue whale is also the loudest animal on Earth and can live over 90 years. The blue whale is the closest thing we'll ever have to a Godzilla or a King Kong, and it's 100% real. Even the whale's heart is huge, weighing roughly 400 pounds, 180 kilos, and being the size of a bumper car. You could sleep inside of the blue whale's heart. Plus, when the blue whale dives deep into the ocean to feed, its massive heart only needs to beat about 2 times a minute to keep it alive. As for how loud the blue whale is, they have an extraordinary call. A jet engine reaches about 140 decibels, while the vocal call of a blue whale hits 188 decibels. Number 8. Gigantopithecus. You might think a gorilla or an orangutan is big, but that's because you've never seen the Gigantopithecus. The Gigantopithecus was a massive hominid creature and the largest primate that ever lived on Earth. Its evolutionary track is similar to other great apes, but it diverged away from common apes between 16 and 5 million years ago. Scientists don't know how exactly this happened, as there have been very few fossils discovered. One of the most recent finds relating to Gigantopithecus came from a cave in China, when scientists discovered the molar of one of these animals dated approximately 1.9 million years old. Using the discovered molar as a base, scientists were able to determine that the Gigantopithecus was closely related to orangutans, with a common ancestor somewhere around 12 million years ago. The Gigantopithecus would have stood 10 feet or 3 meters high on its hind legs and probably weighed about 1,200 pounds or 540 kilos. In comparison, the largest gorilla today stands at about 6 feet, 1.8 meters tall, and only weighs about 300 to 400 pounds. It's about 135 to 180 kilos. It's unclear exactly what happened to this massive ape. It definitely went extinct fairly recently, and many people believe that the elusive Bigfoot and the North American Sasquatch is actually just a Gigantopithecus in hiding. Or is it King Kong hiding out? You think it's possible that the Gigantopithecus is still alive today? Where do you think it is? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons too, if you haven't already. Number 7. Pelagornis sandersi. Today, the wandering albatross has the greatest wingspan on Earth, measuring an incredible 11.5 feet, 3.5 meters. But that's nothing compared to the Pelagornis sandersi, currently recognized as the biggest bird that ever ruled the skies. The sandersi had an enormous wingspan of over 24 feet, over 7 meters. This bird was so massive that it would have made a bald eagle, which is a giant bird in and of itself, look like a puny sparrow. It lived on Earth 25 million years ago, and the first fossils of this gigantic bird were discovered in South Carolina back in 1983. However, it wasn't until recently that researchers from the North Carolina State University managed to formally describe the prehistoric bird. According to a recent report from New Scientist, the sandersi had such huge wings that it likely glided over the oceans of the world while barely flapping its wings, swooping down at will to snatch fish or squid out of the ocean. But if you think the biggest bird on Earth was the biggest thing that ever flew through the sky, you would be dead wrong. The title for the largest flying reptile ever goes to a monstrous creature known as Quetzalcoatlus northropi, which scientists believe to be the largest pterosaur ever. It had a wingspan of 36 feet or 11 meters. That's honestly hard to comprehend. The flying reptile would have been about the size of a small airplane, except that it would have been very hungry and you would have been on the menu. Number 6. African elephant. Everyone knows elephants are huge. It's a pretty common fact. But a lot of people don't understand quite how enormous elephants truly are, or the finer facts about their gigantism. First of all, the African elephant is by far the largest land animal existing in our world today. The African elephant might not be as large as some of the dinosaurs that used to walk the earth, but in the 21st century, they are as big as it gets. According to Elephants for Africa, the biggest African elephant ever recorded was a beast found in the country of Angola and weighed 24,000 pounds or 11,000 kilos and stood 13 feet or 4 meters tall at the shoulders. That's absolutely enormous. Here's some other cool facts. A male elephant almost always grows significantly larger than a female elephant. Female elephants are also known as cows, and they have a pretty scant weight of usually around 7,000 pounds or 3,500 kilos. A lot of what people don't know is that both male and female elephants grow tusks, which are actually just elongated teeth. Males have heavier tusks, with a single tooth weighing up to 175 pounds or 80 kilos. Females only have tusks that weigh about 40 pounds or 18 kilos each. The most defining feature of the African elephant is that it has very large ears, and some people say they are even shaped like the continent of Africa. Number 5. Meganeura. Giant arthropods were first linked to higher atmospheric oxygen levels in 1880 after the first fossil of Meganeura in France was discovered. These dragonfly-like creatures flew around feeding on amphibians and other insects about 300 million years ago. With massive wings of up to 25 inches or 65 centimetres long, they are among the largest flying insects ever to exist on Earth. Strictly speaking, Meganeuras were more griffin flies because their bodies were a bit different from the ones that dragonflies had. Insect body size is limited by the way they transport oxygen from the air into their internal organs. They have no lungs and instead use a tracheal tube system. During the Carboniferous period, 359 to 299 million years ago, up to 35% of the air was oxygen. This may have allowed the Meganeura to draw more energy from the same amount of air and therefore continue to fly even when they became huge. The theory could explain why they didn't survive in later periods when oxygen levels dropped. Number 4. The biggest dinosaur footprint. Now, let's get back to the big stuff. Specifically, the biggest dinosaur footprint ever to be discovered. Scientists recently published some pretty amazing details about a footprint they found in Western Australia. So far, it's the biggest ever found. How big, you ask? Well, it's big enough that you can take a nap inside of it. The footprint stretches 5.5 feet or 1.6 metres in length. That's taller than a lot of people. It was found by researchers as they tried to retrace the ancient journeys of dinosaurs up and down the Australian coast. They found several different footprints, but this is the biggest of them all. You're probably wondering what kind of megalithic dinosaur could have left such an impressive imprint in the rock. Unfortunately, scientists don't know the exact dinosaur that left this footprint. All they can say is that it was a type of sauropod, which is a family of dinosaurs that includes the legendary Brontosaurus. There were actually 21 different types of dinosaur track in the area, suggesting some kind of mass migration, including many different species. The area in which the tracks were found was once a river delta, and 130 million years ago, the giants of Earth crossed the area and left their footprints in the bottom of the mud. Number 3. Giant sea scorpion. Dinosaurs are great and all, but what about giant sea scorpions that lived in the waters surrounding prehistoric Australia? Yes, these creatures did in fact exist. I'm talking about actual scorpions that lived underwater and were roughly the size of a human person. The proper name for this sea demon is Eurypterida, and it lived before the Great Extinction that wiped out 95% of all the organisms on our planet. This was 540 million years ago, when the Earth was ruled by horseshoe crabs and giant crustaceans. Sea scorpions were the biggest and meanest marine predators of their time, growing to almost 10 feet or 3 metres in length. When comparing the prehistoric food chain with the food chain in today's oceans, sea scorpions would have been a beast in the water, a lot like the great white shark is today. That makes them apex predators. They were extremely agile swimmers, constructed like modern scorpions with pinchers and stingy tails. And yes, they could have easily dined on human beings. Imagine a giant scorpion coming for you. Yikes! Number 2. Ostrich. There have been a lot of big birds throughout history, like the legendary terror birds that ruled New Zealand thousands of years ago. But today, most of the terror birds are gone. What we're left with instead are ostriches, which are terrifying in their own right. According to Live Science, ostriches are the largest flightless birds on the planet. They can grow to be over 9 feet or 2.7 metres tall, with a weight of 320 pounds, that's over 140 kilos. Not only that, but an ostrich's eyes are 2 inches or 5 centimetres in diameter, making them some of the largest eyeballs of any land animal. Even their eggs are big, with a diameter of 6 inches or 15 centimetres. The ostrich is also the only living bird that has 2 toes on each of its feet, with every other living bird having at least 3 or 4 toes. The big birds are omnivores, meaning they consume both plants and meat, although it appears they tend to like plants a little more, especially leaves, roots and seeds, and every now and then they go for snakes and rodents too. They will also snack on pebbles and sand. This helps them grind food up inside their gizzard, which is a little pouch where that food is broken down before reaching their stomach. What you might not know is that ostriches live primarily in Africa. A lot of people think ostriches only come from Australia, but that's simply not the case. While ostriches used to thrive all over Asia, Africa, and even the Arabian Peninsula, they have now been hunted to the brink of extinction and can only be found in the hot savannas of Africa. Number 1. The giant rhinoceros. Once upon a time, a very strange and very big creature roamed through Eastern Europe and Asia. This creature was called the giant rhinoceros, also known as the Paraceratherium, or the near the hornless beast. It had a neck like a giraffe, a face like a rhino, and a body like an elephant. Sadly, we've been losing rhinos at an alarming level. The most recent rhinoceros species to go extinct was the northern white rhino in 2018. We are very quickly running out of rhinos on our planet. But what a lot of people don't know is that the giant rhinoceros thrived in prehistoric times. It didn't have a horn, it didn't have a trunk, and yet it stood 16 feet or 4.8 metres at the shoulders and weighed 17 tonnes, that's 34,000 pounds, about as much as 4 African elephants combined. This made the Paraceratherium one of the largest land mammals to ever grace the earth. It's probably the coolest and most confusing extinct species that nobody has ever heard of. Thanks for watching. Are there any other giants that belong on this list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you haven't already, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and be sure to come back soon. See you next time. Bye.